G'day guys, welcome to today's video. We are back working on Chris's really nice R31 today. This morning, I've gone through and just completed the run-in process. Everything's going great. My only gripe at this point is that the diff is actually quite noisy. Once you get up to that sort of 100k an hour, it starts to howl and carry on and make some noises that aren't too great. I did check the diff oil level. There's definitely oil in it. I sent Chris a message, just let him know that it was a bit noisy. He reckons before he mini spooled it, it actually was already a bit noisy. So it doesn't sound like he's too concerned, so we'll just run with it and see how it goes. I haven't done any full power runs yet, obviously, being that run-in process. Just been doing some steady state stuff, loading it up to around that 2 PSI, just allowing those rings to really bed in. So just dumped the run-in oil out of the car, changed the filter, we put some fresh oil in it. Some good oil now, so we're getting ready to start loading this thing up pretty well. Upon dropping the oil, it's got one of the really good magnetic bungs in the oil pan. There was a little bit of stuff on the magnet, nothing more than we'd expect from a fresh engine. But we will, obviously this being a fresh engine, we will cut open this filter and have a good look and make sure there's no nasties in there that are going to concern us at all. But apart from that, the thing's great. It's good oil pressure. I'll show you the look. We did actually change this fan over. So as you can see there, we are now running the stock clutch fan setup with the shroud, and it does clear our trigger setup quite nicely. So since we chucked that in yesterday, today running this in, it has been just, you know, a beautiful sort of 88 degrees. Just loves to sit there, not getting very hot. Exactly how they sort of run with these clutch fan setups. Like I said here in the last episode, as much as really good thermos are a really good idea, it's just that it's hard to justify spending sort of $300 on some decent thermos when the clutch fan setup does such a good job. The only thing is that because of the clutch fan setup, it's one of those things you don't want to rev them too hard. But being that this is a very small housing on this turbo, we're not too sure that it's going to love to be revving anyway. But we'll just see how we go with it. Take it, play it by ear. The other thing that I did forget to mention in the last video, which is pointed out, is what gearbox this thing's running. So this thing is running the RB25 or the R33 GTS-T big box. So it's got the good gearbox in it, should be able to handle quite a bit of punishment at the sort of power level we're going to be looking to make with this thing. I've been in contact with Chris today also. Chris is going to be free tomorrow to come out and sort of watch this thing and watch some power runs. So not in a mad rush to get this all done today, because I would like Chris to be here for when we're sort of turning it up and that. You know, being that he built the engine as a tuner, it's always nice when he is handy and about, because if I have any qualms or queries or there's something that I don't particularly like, he's here and I can talk to him about it, you know, face to face, and then he can make the decision on whether he wants to keep sending it or dial it back or whatever he may want to do. So I'm stoked that Chris is going to be coming out to see it. It's going to be handy and that's going to be really good. Also just tightened up the air gap on the cam trigger a little bit, and it's not doing any of that carrying on anymore, so that's all sweet now. Really impressed with this trigger setup. About the only recommendation I would be making to Ross is to maybe just put in a little window in this cover plate here, somewhere around this sort of sensor where you could actually visually see how close the end of the sensor is to the tooth, or at least even get a feeler gauge in there or something and feel it out. Just the way that this is set up, it makes it difficult to measure. It's not impossible to measure, it's just difficult. So we just measure it down the hole with the verniers to the cam tooth. Then we just check the verniers on the sensor to that sort of mating surface and go from there and measure it out. But obviously if you get it wrong, it can either, if it's too wide, it'll either won't pick up like we were seeing the other day, and if you get it too tight, you risk damaging the sensor with the tooth. So if it just had that little hole in the end of it for inspection or something like that, it would just make it a lot easier to use. After editing the last video, I realized there's a few things that I forgot to really push on this car as well and mention. First thing is the TI front. Like, it is actually a TI fronted car. Chris has also put the corner markers in the guards, which is like, you know, reminiscent of the JDM guards. It is a very cool looking car. I also noticed today, which is something I didn't even notice last time, when I was under here looking at the diff oil and checking the diff oil, how nice all the fab work actually is on this car. Like, the exhaust is really nicely done. Looks really good. I don't know who did the fab work. I don't know if Chris does his own or who did it, but they did a really good job. Like, it's a really nice car. And I've been into all gears today, first all the way through to fifth. Gearbox feels awesome. Everything feels really good. So we've just cut this filter open, and there is quite a bit of metallic stuff in there. Quite a bit more than we would like to see. But again, without having built the motor, all we can do is give recommendations. So we'll get on to Chris and just let him know. You can always expect just a little bit out of a very new engine, but this is a little excessive. Righto guys, so I had a quick chat to Chris, let him know what was going on with the filter. There's a fair bit of stuff in there, but a lot of it's not metallic, so a lot of it's non-ferrous, which means it's just soft metal. which, you know, it's like we said, it's a lot more than we like to see. But, you know, if your thrust isn't set correctly during the, you know, the assembly process, and your cranks sort of, if the thrust bearings aren't perfectly aligned and your crank's sort of wearing on one more than the other, it will do that. It will take a lot of that soft metal off until it sorts itself out and beds in. So, again, without having built the motor and that sort of stuff, you don't know these things. So, I've just let Chris know so that he, you know, is in control, and he's pretty happy for us to continue going. We're just going to keep a real close ear on it and a real close eye on it as we continue to go into it. So at the moment we're just working out how we're going to set up the plex on it, and after that we'll get some tuning happening on gate pressure. Righto guys, so pretty great result for the day. It's amazing how much this cam makes a difference to this combo. So we've ended up here at 355 at the wheels on gate pressure. So this is at about, what are we, 14, 15 pound on gate? About 15. So about 15 PSI on gate, we're at 355 at the wheels, which is super duper impressive. You know, to compare that to the white one that we built, which had the exact same turbo setup, albeit I don't exactly know what brand this is. And I did notice that when I had to take the intake off to do the trigger setup, that is actually an 11 blade front wheel. I'm pretty sure Rex's was a 6+6.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so you know, it sounds like a different turbo. I believe it's not the same turbo that Rex had on his, but you know, similarly sized, same size rear housing, both 3582s. Rex is with the stock cam, and you know, at 21 PSI we made 380 or 382 or something. So 385, yeah. So you know, we're really leaning on that setup to make that sort of power. That being said, the limiting factor at that point was the rear housing. So the fact that this is making such good power on such little boost is awesome. But it's sort of the same story with these things. As soon as you cam them, they just want to keep revving. They love it. Our query with this thing is because it's a stock bottom end, it's obviously, I'm sure it's just got stock rod bolts in it. We know for a fact that stock rod bolts in these things start to get pretty unhappy around that 7.5 RPM. So we're not too keen on revving it heaps hard. We'll talk to Chris when he comes here tomorrow, when he's here. We'll see what he reckons, see if he's happy to try leaning it a bit more and rev it a bit harder if he wants. By all accounts, it should still pretty much keep making power if we keep revving it. So yeah, it's insane how much difference these cams actually make to these things. All of this being said, given the fact that you know, we've run into the limit of the flow of this 0.8 or the 0.6, sorry, housing on the 3582 before with the stock cam. I'm actually not quite sure sort of how much more boost we're actually going to get into this thing, to be honest. So tomorrow we'll get the Mac valve hooked up. You'll see that straight away in this video. But yeah, my predictions at the start of this were sort of that 16 to 18 pounders where we're going to start running out of pretty much a housing for this setup with this cam in it. So that's my predictions. So maybe we'll get surprised tomorrow. We'll see how we go. But yeah, very healthy figures for the amount of boost we're running. So I've brought up here the actual manifold gauge pressure so you can see, yeah, around that 14, creeping up to 15 PSI. And yeah, that 355 wheel with a nice, very healthy power curve. Pretty much exactly what we found with Rex's that we built with the stock cam. The difference was that There were one with the stock cam sort of come on pretty hard and then sort of fell off pretty hard as well towards 7 because it had the stock cam and stock springs. Obviously this thing with that extra flow of that cam and the springs holding on, it just keeps wanting to rev. It wants to keep going.
I'm not 100% convinced that is a 6.3 housing.
Yeah, the way it's coming on almost looks like an 8.8.
Yeah. Like you look at
yours
the
was
mine,
sort of smashing on here.
Bang,
yeah.
Like
yep.
It hits so hard, whereas this is just such a nice.
Yeah, it would be, honestly, if it is a 0.8, that's...
And it's making more power.
Yeah.
Like way more.
0.8 for this setup is much more favourable as size. 0.8 will give us much more room to move. You can see in these early runs we had that same sort of waviness issue that we had with, funnily enough, the last sort of bigger power 31 we did. Same thing where it was rocking back and forth. The tyres that are on this thing are just cheap tyres. We did have some problems with some tyre spin, but we've got it sorted. We had to introduce like the third strap to just strap the diff straight back, just to keep it at bay so it doesn't keep rolling right up onto the rockers, because with the cheap tyres we need it to roll up onto the rollers, otherwise it just spins. So we got it sorted, got the waviness out. It's really nice. Like, it's like a really nice power curve. That's a lot of area to be working with as far as, you know, a bit of a street car or round car and you know, a drift car. So far so good. Oil pressure's still good. Everything's pretty healthy. Nothing to really be concerned about. So well done to Chris, and we'll keep going with some more boost when he's here. Righto guys, so we're back here this morning, pumping a bit more boost into it. Chris is here today. He's pretty much told us he wants to pull it up at about 400 wheel. He's plenty happy with 400 wheel, and as we know, 400 wheel on one of these things is just outrageous as it is, particularly on 15. So we've rounded up to 18 pound and we've made our 400 wheel, but we are finding we are getting quite a bit of tyre slip, which has been an ongoing bit of an issue with this car. So this is our power and boost. So you can see these waviness, that's just our tyre slip. We've done sort of everything we can. We've let the tyres down a fair bit, kept strapping them down harder and differently, trying to get them to grip up, but it's about as good as we can get it is grip into there. It's weird, we were adding timing and it was getting quieter on the Plex, but it wasn't making any more power. And we knew, yeah, so it was just sort of getting tyre slip. But what we're doing is like giving it half an hour to let the tyres cool down a bit, and let everything else cool down a bit. And then we'll do another 2 runs where we are and just see what it sort of pulls up. Yeah, hopefully we probably make a little bit more than 400, but just hopefully we get this curve nice with some colder tyres that aren't really hot, and a little bit less tyre slip maybe. We'll see. It's worth trying anyway. The only other issue we found with this morning as well with the cold start is pretty much similar to everything we ever do with big cams and no IAC. It's very hard to get the cold start right, just because big cams, they don't make heaps of vacuum under crank and they just want that air. So yeah, we've done the best we can to sort of get the cold start where we can with one sort of hit. Because Chris has come out today, he's brought the trailer out to take the car with him, so it'd be pretty good. It's just it needs that little bit of throttle on first start, just to get that air in. With an IAC, obviously you can control all that, which makes it better, but not particularly necessary. Anyway, pretty impressive. 18 pound, 400. This is going to be a pretty wild unit. Righto guys, so we're all finished up. We did end up having a few little problems with the TPS in the car, having a bit of a flat spot just off throttle. So all I did was ended up calibrating the TPS and then actually physically turning the TPS so the calibration starts at about 6%, which I somewhat fixed it. But yeah, we'll just sort of get Chris to try and get himself a new TPS when he can, and probably just get Sam to plug it in or pin it in. We do have other TPSs here that we could use, but we'd have to modify the loom, which then wouldn't be warranted, it'd void the warranty on the loom. So we've done what we can for that, but yeah, we did end up with a bit of a cool down, let the tyres cool down. We're still getting a bit of slip happening there, but we did end up at a 412, which I reckon is probably pretty accurate. So 412 at the wheels on 18 PSI on pump fuel is pretty staunch for this thing, so we're all pretty stoked. Big well done to Chris and everyone involved with getting the car here. Also, Chris did tell me this morning he does his own fab work, so that exhaust was all done by Chris himself at home. So very, very well done car, really good numbers, and yeah, hopefully Chris will enjoy this a lot.